We don't make comments on vendors that we may or may not have engaged with. We don't make comments on vendors that our party may or may not have engaged with.
Did you, yes or no, did you hire Mr. Kinsella?
As a rule, we never make comments on vendors that we may or may not have engaged with.
Our party offers no comment on contracts that we may or may not have. Is it true? We don't comment on contracts we may or may not have. Why? It's an internal issue to the party. We do not comment if we don't have any. We don't comment on contracts that we may or may not have.
So as a rule, we don't make comments on vendors that we may or may not have contracts with.
Why can't you be transparent about that?
It's just we don't offer comments on contracts that may or may not exist on vendors that we may or may not have a relationship with. General rule when it comes to
what's the
party
general rule?
matters.
What is the general rule?
When it relates to party matters, we don't comment on contracts we may or may not have with vendors.
Why?
It's we don't offer comments. We
That's
don't
just
make
not
comments
acceptable,
on
Mr. Scheer. You
contracts that may or may not exist.
You should be transparent about this.
Well,
Why can't you answer this question?
When it comes to internal party matters, when it comes to contracts that may or may not exist, we don't offer comment. But we're not going to make comments on contracts that may or may not exist.
I'm not asking about a contract. I'm asking about the principle of digging up during your opponent and hiring a firm to do it secretly.
And I said we're not going to make comments on contracts that may or may not exist or with vendors that we may or may not have. So as a rule, we don't make comments on contracts that may or may not exist or vendors that we may or may not have.
One last follow-up, Mr. Scheer. What is the rule that you have here that you can't say which contractors you're working with?
We just don't comment on the contracts that we may or may not
why?
have.
Is it a rule you just made up?
We don't make comments on contracts that we may or may not have or vendors that we may or may not have engaged with.
And again, one of my colleagues asked if Liberal leader Justin Trudeau had said that, would you accept that answer?
It's we don't make comment on contracts that we may or may not have. Thanks very much, everyone. Merci beaucoup.